Okay, Shalom Akim, Kahalan no Yahweh Shem Yahshua Bashem Hakudash, and double honors to the greatest and apostles, Thadi Yahshua for the strength and all to make this video, and Yaratazar that you also edified and you're exalted by this video too. So, just for the, brief intro, when we say Kal Halalim La, we're saying all praises to in the ancient Hebrew. Kal means all, Halalim means praises, La means to. So what that means all praises to, and when we say Yahweh, that's the name of the Most High. The world in ignorance calls him God, but his real name is Yahweh, and that means he is, or he exists, or he is to be. So when we say Bahasham, that means in the name. Ba means in, Ha means the, and then Sham, S-H-A-M, which really is the root word for Shem, S-H-E-M. The real ancient Hebrew word is Sham, S-H-A-M, which means name. So Bahasham means in the name. And when we say Yahushua, we're saying he delivers. That's literally what, that's the purpose of Yahushua. He will deliver, literally, well, first and foremost, the elect. And then through the loins of the elect, that's when the 2/3 would then be reborn. But not to get too deep, the point is, when we say Kahalayim La Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua, we're saying all praises to Yahweh in the name Yahushua. When we say Bahashem Racha Kodash, we're saying in the name Spirit Holy. Racha means Spirit, Kodash means Holy. So through the Holy Spirit, that's how we then get connected to Yahushua. And of course, through Yahushua, that's when we get intervention and mercy from Yahweh, because Yahushua is intervening on our behalf as well. Yaharatazar, that we are those men of whom are going to gain that salvation, the elect, as it mentions in Revelation 14. But the point of this video is really just to bring out a bit more information on Pocahontas, the Native American history thing, on Pocahontas, and just bring out a few precepts, so be like a little top-up video on the history, because I knew that there was certain things I wanted to bring out, and a few more precepts to bring out as well. So this is the part 7 in the Native American history series. So let's see, where should I start, man? Anyways, so we talked about women, about how they ought to be. But anyways, I mentioned that in the last video. So, but yeah, part 7, I'll start from here. Page 62 of the book, Native American History, by Captivating History, as you see on the bottom. Captivating History. I always mention it so that brothers who want to, buy it for themselves and, get into it, they can get into it. And it's quite simple to understand as well. It's not like too advanced in terms of being able to read it or understand it. So let's start here, page 62, in the letter paragraph. It says, given that no one in England could refute his claims, so they're talking about John Smith on his story on Pocahontas. So of course, clearly it was a real person, but the fable was really an exaggeration of Pocahontas, which is the conclusion here. Don't know if I mentioned that in the previous video, but that's pretty much the conclusion here. It's a real person, but there's an exaggeration to it, which makes it feel as though it's fake. So that's the illusion there. Anyways, page 62, given that no one in England could refute his claims, it is possible that Pocahontas made a very good impression on him at that time. It says, based on his descriptions, actually, let me read a paragraph above. It says, according to Smith, so John Smith, the guy who went to America around early 17th century, 1607. It says, according to Smith's own description of Pocahontas, she was very fair. In other words, beautiful. She was appealing to the eye, to him specifically. It says, he recounted how Chief Powhatan's people said that she was a brilliant child, very intelligent. It says, who had a lively spirit. And it makes sense, because I think in the previous video, either in the part 6 or part 5, I did read what Pocahontas means, and it says we go back a page, and page 61 on the top paragraph, it says the name has a few different translations, including playful one and ill-behaved child. So she was probably rebellious. You know the way brothers always say. I remember Captain says this as well, man. Where you gotta be careful what you name your child, man, because that is most likely what the child's destiny will be. That's what the child will most likely fulfill. Which at the end of the day, it's the Most High's will, but you gotta be really careful with what you name your child. So yeah, she probably would have been very rebellious as well, Pocahontas. So anyways, back to page 62. So that's what her name means, ill-behaved child or the playful one. And you could liken that as onto one who's so-called free-spirited, and rebellious. But yeah, it says Chief Powhatan's people said that she was a brilliant child, so she was intelligent, who had a lively spirit. Everyone appeared to have high hopes for her and treated her with respect, not just because she was the chief's daughter, but because of her own merit and abilities. So of course she still managed to get some respect. Now keep this in mind, man. When Gad and Reuben were over there in the Americas, they weren't keeping the laws, of course, of Yahweh Hashem Yahshua. They were following after their own gods. Hence why, they were in their own delusion, you could call it. So anyways, and that's why the Most High sent Esau Edom onto them in the first place, as part of the curses. So Deuteronomy 28, thing about, obviously I've mentioned this like several times in the past videos, but I'm going to just mention it again. Just to keep the theme of the series, which is the fact that Esau Edom came in order to oppress us because the Most High sent them. Now let's get this. I know I mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again because this is the key point here. The key theme of the video. Let's hold on. Then I'll read from... Alright, Deuteronomy 28 and verse 36. It says here, Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 36. The Lord Yahweh shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. Wood and stone as well predominantly goes into Christianity and Islam, man. And we're going to get into it in this video because she was actually forced to convert to Christianity, because of she had to assimilate into society. She had no choice. But anyways, we're going to get into it. Nevertheless, of that, we're going to get into it. So I didn't even know there was a reason why I was bringing that out. But yeah, the point is that Esau Edom came because it's part of the curses for us to suffer the oppression through the nation of the Edomites predominantly. Now it says here, alright, so she her own merit and abilities, given that no one in England could refute his claims. So it's John Smith, John Smith's claim, that's his full name. Of course, he probably had a middle name, but I won't get into details. Given that no one in England could refute his claims, again, John Smith's claims, it is possible that Pocahontas made a very good impression on him at that time, based on his descriptions of her, particularly her appearance, saying that she was better looking than any other woman on the continent. It is possible that Smith had more of a romantic interest in her. This could have caused him to write an entirely fictitious account that showed her saving him. You see, so that's why I mentioned at the beginning of the video is more so of an exaggeration. Of course, Disney, including fiction and all that, in order to appeal to a certain audience, especially children. But just know that the reality is I was gonna say stranger than fiction, but yeah. Anyways, the reality is far away from fiction. That's really what it is. So it says it is possible that Smith had more of a romantic interest in her, and the way If a person's in love, it can. What's that saying? What love clouds judgment or something like that. That was pretty much the case here, man. So objectivity wasn't really the case for Smith. So he would have exaggerated certain things in order to make her look good in a certain way, more than she already was, or more than her actual value. Now it says this could have caused him to write an entirely fictitious account, pertaining to fiction, exaggerating things that showed her saving him. Also, he was trying to sell his memoirs, and adding an element of a love story would attract more attention than if it was just an adventure story. Yeah, so that's you could liken that as onto him having a more of a marketing psychology there. He was like, okay, how am I going to sell all these books, or how am I going to sell this story to people? So that was his mindset. Continuing on, it says it is also possible that his time among the natives showed him not only how they were more than just savages. We've got into it in the part 3 and 4, I believe. The weaponry of Gad and Reuben. Again, Gad being the Native American Indians and Reuben being the Seminole Indians. Because really, the Seminole Indians you can see as a subpart of the Native American Indians. I mentioned it before, but whatever. Sometimes brothers may be catching up to the series, or so I like to repeat things just to establish the point even more. But yeah, Gad, Native American Indians, Seminole Indians are a subpart of the Native American Indians. So technically, the Seminole Indians are also Native American Indians. They're just a specific tribe within the Native American Indians. But besides the point, though, they had weaponry, they had trades as well. One tribe who specialized in food or fishing, would trade with another tribe who specialized in weaponry. I think I got into that with the Algonquin tribe and who traded with the Iroquois nation. They traded, man. So God ain't stupid. They knew how to watch the seasons in order to reap the harvest or maximize it as well. So I mentioned that too in the previous videos, but let's continue on. So they're not dumb. That's the point. They're very intelligent. It says, but taught him, despite the curses hitting us, the Most High still gave us a mind of reason, to know how to look after ourselves, despite all the shit that we had to go through. It says, let me start again. It says it is also possible that his time among the natives showed him not only how they were more than just savages, but taught him a much deeper appreciation for the women. Native American women were far more opinionated and respected by men than European women at the time. Because they were freer, these women would have appeared stronger, more capable, and intelligent, which probably would have been a challenge for God as well, if you know what I mean. But you know what the scriptures talk about, man, when it comes to how women should be. Because there's a reason why the Most High has deprived her of wisdom. Hold on. So this is starting from, I'm going to start from verse 3. It's between verse 3 and 5. So Titus chapter 2, verse 3 to 5. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, separate. It says not false and in a righteous sense. And how do you know what righteous sense it should be? Through the scriptures. Now, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, serious, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their husbands, to their own husbands, that the word of the Most High be not blasphemed. See, so that's the programming of which Yahweh intended for these women to have, man. If in case you don't know what blueprint women are supposed to have in this modern age, It's supposed to be like that. Titus 2, verse 3 to 5. But here where it says, because in page 63, the Native American book, it says because they were freer, these women would have appeared stronger, more capable and intelligent. And, obviously when it comes with where scriptures talk about knowledge puffeth up as well. So how much more the woman being a weaker vessel, she gaining knowledge, will make her more likely to also rebel against her man. Because she would then start to reason, okay, what need do I have of him? Because of the fact that she's now gained this new knowledge. Now, of course, if it with the lack of the fear of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, amongst Gad, and it's not just Gad, I'm only getting into Gad right now because of the fact I'm getting into the history. Yaratazar, I need to make a series specifically on the northern tribe, the rest of the northern tribe, really. Certain tribes I know I've got another book similar to this one, but it's on the Latin American history. But once I'm done with this, before I continue on with that one, point being is, without the fear of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the woman wouldn't be in order, even then, because of the curses. So of course, you could reason within yourself that even God had trouble with their women back in that day as well. So anyways, it says his own awe for the girl could have made him want to show just how amazing she was, and anything short of saving his life likely would not have impressed those back in England. Now, of course, just because it says they're stronger, more capable, and intelligent, doesn't mean that they were completely rebellious. Of course, there would have been certain women that would have reasoned and would have actually loved their husbands. There would have been certain, the good ones amongst the flock. So that you can't remove that exception there. But some of them, having wicked spirits, they would have been rebellious, man, to their husbands. So, because remember, this is when the curses were being applied onto Israel. Just by the mere fact that we didn't even know, we forgot about the names Yahweh, Yahushai, just tells you alone that the curses were already in play. So yeah, so anything short of saving his life likely would not have impressed those back in England. All right, let's skip on. So, bottom of page 63, Pocahontas, it says, what is known? Pocahontas married a warrior, and, just in case, just to show what I'm reading here, because I said what is known. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah, what is known. That's what I'm reading, and I'm about to read this. That's basically based upon her marriage life, and also the fact that she had to convert to Christianity. So I'm gonna get a precept on that as well. So Pocahontas married a warrior of her people named Cocoon. However, the marriage was likely dissolved because the English captured her around 1612 or 1613. It says, as the settlers are allied with one of the tribes that had a dubious connection to the chief, they tricked her into boarding their ship. You see, trickery. Never trust thine enemy. See, the most I really kept Jake in that. Despite Jake being able to reason with the land and, being able to till the land and watch the seas and all that, basically wisdom of to apply to the world. The Most High still kept us in a state of he limited us, let's just say that, in terms of our intelligence too, because if we had the knowledge of the scriptures within our mind and studied and taught, as it was back in the day when Yahushua was also on earth, and of course when the prophets of old were on earth as well, when Israel was actually in their land, you could say. The thing is, they wouldn't have trusted Esau either, man. Which then again, Reuben, we're gonna get into Reuben soon, man. We're gonna get into Reuben because Yarat's out. I think that one requires. I'll add it to this one, but I need to get a specific book for that. But yeah, certain of the Reubenite history is still here as well, but they mainly touch on Gad in general. But anyways, where is it? Because this is, if they had the scriptural wisdom within their minds, man, Esau wouldn't have been able to oppress us, because, but of course, he was able to succeed, to successfully overcome us, because of the fact that, first of all, we departed from Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. So that's our power source already, well, not tarnished, but we were separated from our power source. And then that alone, for the fulfillment of scripture, we had to go through the prophecy, the scriptures, the curses, to be more specific. So anyways, this was the wisdom God needed to have, man. Seminole, what's it, Reuben, on the other hand, Seminole Indians, they had this hardcore. Now let me read it. Ecclesiasticus 12:10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Just that line alone. Never trust thine enemy. The invaders coming from, the European countries into the land that the Most High gave Gad, and Reuben. Or that basic never trust thine enemy would have had them would have kept them alive for much longer, man. But again, fulfillment of prophecy, fulfillment of scriptures, man, curses. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. It's because how Esau can be quite sly as a serpent, man. Genesis 3 goes into it as well. That serpent really represents Esau, Edom's spirit, the spirit, the wicked seed. Now it says, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Set him not by thee, lest, when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. You see? So of course you can't just get, be buddy with him, like a friend, because he's your enemy. You got to remember that God, of course, gave these Edomites who came by, to the land, too much leeway. And of course, Reuben saw that. I was like, nah, you ain't gonna do this. Hence why the War of Independence. Reuben was like, nah, go away. But anyways, the Aratazar needs to also make a video on the. I mentioned it briefly, probably in the other parts, but that's based upon this book that I'm reading. But yeah, let's continue. It says, set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand in thy place, neither let him sit at thy right hand. And that's literally what happened. Edomites came from the European countries, then they overthrew Gad and Reuben, and then after that, they then established America right now, which really ain't even the land that Edomites claimed. They claimed that by flipping stealing lands. As it says within the scriptures, the thief cometh to steal, kill, and destroy. Let me even get that. Hold on. The thief cometh to steal, kill, and destroy. Just hold on, let me get it. So John 10:10, the thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. So that thief represents Esau, Edom, and he literally did come to steal the land of Gad and Reuben, to kill Gad and Reuben, and to destroy them utterly. Now, and not just Gad and Reuben, obviously the other northern tribe, but we're just focusing on Gad and Reuben right now. Alright, overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place, neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And that's literally what Esau did. That's why he labeled it as America. And thou at the last remember my words and pricked therewith. And it says, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. When it's like, that's pretty much like, when you're warned or you're given a message like, remember, don't do this, or remember to apply this, but you don't actually, when you actually go to the scenario, you forget to apply it, or, you don't apply it. But then at the latter, when you then suffer the consequences, you then realize, oh, damn, so that's why I had to apply in this scenario. Oh damn! I forgot to apply this scenario. So that's pretty much what it is when the Most High is saying, at the last, when you're suffering the afflictions, you didn't realize we should have listened to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. That's really the lesson that the Most High has taught us. It's not just Gadarene, but all the tribes really, in their own way. That we shouldn't have really in the root of it all. We shouldn't have disobeyed Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Hence why in the second go around, we're gonna have those new bodies. In 1 Corinthians 15, from verse 50 onwards, and we wouldn't be able to sin anymore. No more death. Death shall be swallowed up in victory. But anyways, I was gonna get something based on that because it says here in verse 12, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. It's like, yeah, you remember that. Okay, I should have listened. That's pretty much the message there. That's why in let me get Hosea 5:15, which is really a summary of what's about to happen for Jacob's trouble as well. In their affliction, they will seek me. Just hold on. So bear with me. Hold on. Okay, cool. So Hosea chapter 5 and verse 15. Hosea chapter 5 and 15, it says, I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. In their affliction, they will seek me early. You see? But the Most High is going to turn his back, man, and say, yeah, man, that grace period is done. That's why right now, whilst you still got the prophets out there, preaching, as we go out there in the highways and byways, as we make these videos, the point is, this is the opportunity. We're still in this grace period. As soon as Yahweh Shem Yahshua withdraws us from being able to prophesy and preach this word, which is when you're going to see the famine of the word. I think either in Amos 5 and 11 or Amos 8 and 11. Thing is, when that famine of the word hits, that's the grace period finished. It's like, man, wherever you've got, that's what you got to deal with. If you ain't got the names Yahweh Shem Yahushua, if you ain't got the faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua, that's your lot then. Unless the Most High has mercy upon you, especially when you talk about the 11th hour Israelites, man. Them ones who are gonna come at the latter end, and then they're gonna realize, they're gonna find out about the Most High is gonna have mercy upon them. That's pretty much what I'm saying. So yeah, man, you got elect members that'll be woken up at the latter end as well. So let's see. So I read Hosea 5 and 15. In their affliction they will seek me. There was something else that I was also intended to get. So hold on. But based on the famine of the word. Yeah, I've got Amos 8 and 11. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh, the Most High, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but for the hearing of the words of the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You see? So of course, the point is that, I went a little tangent here, but the point is that because of the fact that we separate from Yahweh Shem Yahushua, that's why we're in the position that we're in, having to suffer these afflictions and curses and being subservient, as I always like to say, being a servant unto Esau, Edom, which really is just in a different form right now, considering the taxes that we need to pay and going to work, and obviously Esau, Edom owning the infrastructures of society. But yeah, man, I'll let that for another video. Let's continue on. It says, Yeah, verse 13. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beasts? You see, so of course, you're gonna pity someone, you ain't gonna reason and say, this is our enemy, why are you still gonna trust them? And that's how Pocahontas was tricked. Anyways, let's get to it. Let's get to it. So it says, back to the book. It says, as settlers allied with one of the tribes that had dubious connection to the chief. Let me even search up the word. What does dubious mean? I've heard of it before, but I forgot what it meant. It's like yeah, I'll just search up. I'll search up. So define dubious. So dubious in a Google dictionary says hesitating or doubting, not to be relied upon, suspect, suspicious. It says morally suspect, a questionable value. So the point is, you can't. It's pretty much the never trust thine enemy mindset, man. That's pretty much what dubious means. Someone you can't be trusted. It says with as the settlers allied with one of the tribes, they had a dubious connection to the chief. So Chief Powhatan. You know, the dubious connection means that that connection can't be trusted. You see. So clearly, they were in that never trust thine enemy mindset, man. Now I said they tricked her into boarding their ship. They tricked her into boarding their ship, holding her hostage. They used her to attempt to gain the release of some of their own men from her people. So obviously, the settlers were also in prison as well. Gad, of course, had some rules, you could say, some principles, but nevertheless, though, they still captured her. Now it says, some of their own men from her people. When the Powhatan refused, the English kept her. So of course they wanted to use her as leverage, but the English kept her, man. So anyways, while she was in captivity, they had her convert to Christianity. You see, I mentioned this earlier on in the video. While she was in captivity, they had her convert to Christianity, which whether she did so willingly or not is definitely debatable. It says they baptized her and renamed her Rebecca. Little else is known about the year when they kept her captive, apart from the fact that she met John Rolfe during the time. When violence erupted again in the early spring of 1614, Pocahontas was sent to talk to her father in the hopes that it would be a successful diplomatic move. During that time, she did that. She would prefer to remain with her captors than to return to him. The reason why she wanted to remain with the captors because she probably knew in her mind that they're gonna call her a sellout if she came back to the lands, man. Which, to be fair, yeah, of course they would have told her, they would have called her that. It was probably a case of if she refused, they probably would have killed her. That's the thing. They probably would have killed her. Now, that's why not everyone can stomach death as easy as certain individuals could stomach it, man. Of course, Yahushua being the main example of stomaching death. Now, of course, even Yahushua had his moments where he asked the Father if there's another path, man. But he had to still go through it. Had to go through that pain and go through that pain of death as well. Now, point being is going back to Pocahontas, is that she could have been threatened that okay, it's either you die or you convert to Christianity, man. I remember there's this series on Netflix as well. It used to be on Amazon Prime. That's where I originally watched it. It's called Vikings. And really, there's this back and forth of Christians capturing Vikings and Vikings capturing Christians, and pretty much them converting each other to the Vikings trying to make the Christians to forsake their God, their power. Which, at the end of the day, Christians don't really serve the flipping. They don't serve Yahweh. They serve their idol. They don't serve him in truth because they ain't using the names either. But point being is, in that show called Vikings, There's this back and forth of trying to convert the Vikings to Christians and Christians to Vikings, man. Or else they're gonna have to suffer some severe consequences. And if you watch the series, obviously it's quite long. I think it's either 5 or 6 seasons, around there. But the point is, it's what's it called? It's the point really is the conversion and the threat tactics that were used to convert them. But then eventually, I'm not gonna spoil. I'm not gonna spoil it, man. Point is, if you want to watch it, you can watch it. I know another. It's like one of these medieval series as well. Movies like you got the King. Um, what else is there? Obviously, Last Kingdom as well. That's another one. Uh, there's many, but predominant ones is like Last Kingdom and Vikings, as well as Vikings Valhalla as well. But anyways, the point is, let me read it. Let me read the point. It says, while she was in captivity, they had her convert to Christianity. Whether she did so willingly or not is definitely debatable. So yeah, and she didn't want to go back to the lands anymore, man, because she would have been called a seller, which is understandable. But they don't. Yeah, they would. God wouldn't have been able to tolerate her coming back, man. So yeah, it was a done deal at that point. She's just you could call her one of many. Jake having to flipping sell out, man. Because either it's two things: either you sell out, or you die, or you just have to suffer torture until you die, anyways. Which is really going to be the options for when it comes to the mark of the beast, man. It's going to be okay. You either take it, which is just selling out to Esau Edom at the ultimate level, or you just die. You may suffer torture for a bit, but Yahweh Hashem will give you strength to endure that. Read 2 Maccabees 6 and 2 Maccabees 7 as well. And the guy's name in 2 Maccabees 6 was Eliezer as well. Let me just cross check that quickly. Eliezer, when they made laws from them having to eat pork, but they didn't want to eat pork, so of course they had to die. Now this was seen as a chastening from Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, man. This was seen as a chastening unto Israel. Oh yeah, 2 Maccabees, hold on. I'm not gonna read, I'm just checking the name if it was Eliezer. Because I remember doing a separate lesson on that, but let's see. Let's see. Yeah, it was Eliezer. I think is Yahweh helps, and because it's Allah, and then Isaiah. So power helps. Anyways, point being is that the same time that we're in now where you got the mark of the beast, is gonna be either sell out by taking the mark of the beast, which is the ultimate form of disobedience to Yahweh Hashem Yahshua, hence why destruction is the destiny of those who take it. And two, you die for the truth, man. You suffer torture for a bit if it's Yahweh's will to do so. You may be a pilgrim, which that in itself will still be an endurance with all the shit that's going to be going on during Jacob's trouble. You're going to have to be on that high level of faith. But nevertheless, let's get back to the history lesson. I'm just comparing that to the time that we're in right now. The way she sold out there. So yeah, pretty much you could say that Pocahontas sold out, man. Whether it be by force or willingly, that was it. That's why she felt. She probably felt ashamed, so much shame that she didn't want to go back to the Don, to her family, man. Chief Powhatan. She didn't want to go back to her father. Now it says during that time she said that she would prefer to remain with her captors and return to him. It's one of those. Before I even get that, hold on. Let me get this precept because I've been holding it as well. So Deuteronomy 4 and verse 27, it says, and the Lord Yahweh shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whither the Lord Yahweh shall lead you. So that was another curse literally being applied to Pocahontas right there. It says, In verse 28, Deuteronomy chapter 4 and 28, and there ye shall serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, whether which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. See, and that wood and stone represent, well, the wood represents Christianity. The stone represents Islam. You know, you could put two and two together just observing the religion, and you'll see it. But that's the point right there, man. You know, that's the curse right there. That's also applied onto Israel. All right, let's see. I'm almost done wrapping up the video. Just hold on, because I'm near the end of the chapter. It says John Rolfe had become infatuated with Pocahontas, so a strong love for Pocahontas. Having lost his first wife and child during the crossing to North America, it appeared he was ready to find a new wife. He asked the governor if he could marry Pocahontas, expressing a deep love for her and a desire to save her soul through a Christian marriage. The request was approved, and they were wed. They were wed on April 5th, 1614. There is no record of how she felt about the marriage. You know, obviously she definitely felt shame though, that's for sure. You know, but I guess, you know, being forced to sell out like that, you know, you had to. She was in a very tight situation, so she had no choice but to assimilate. You know, which at the end of the day, the latter would have been death. Anyway, so they lived, which at the end of the day, really, you know, we serve Yahweh Shem Yahshua, so of course we actually got hope in our spirits, man. You know, but in that time, you didn't even know about the names Yahweh Shem Yahshua, so there was no hope. That's why Jake was in a weaker state, man. The fact that we know the names Yahweh Yahshua already connects us to our power source in an even stronger sense than back in the day when we were just deceived with all these idols, you know, wood and stone, as I mentioned before in Deuteronomy 4 and verse 28. You know, so really, the name Yahweh Shem Yahushua, the names Yahweh wa Yahushua are key. Now, let's see. There's no record of how she felt about the marriage. Let's see. Alright, I mean, that's really the key part right there. I just want to see if there's anything else, because I don't read the whole thing here. To prove that they were tame and savage. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna read the latter part just to summarize, or just to end it off. Now, until the Disney movie was released, it was actually somewhat difficult. So this is like the latter paragraph. Until the Disney movie was released, it was actually somewhat difficult to get Native Americans from the region to discuss her because of how often she was brought up by Europeans and Americans. Though Disney's version was wildly and blatantly inaccurate, you see, that was the myth, that was the fable. It was exaggerated. She was certainly not buxom young. She was not a buxom young woman. It actually focused on Pocahontas instead of on John Smith. This helped to revitalize the discussion as a modern day Powhatans realized that they should be putting forth their version of the story after centuries of Smith's fiction dominating the historical records. It is difficult to know exactly how the Powhatans felt about her before the movie's release, as they generally sighed and showed displeasure when asked about her. You know, that's the thing. That's the thing. And it makes sense. You know, they generally sigh and show displeasure because of the fact that, you know, considering that what we just read, that she sold out to Christianity, man. And they would have been thinking, damn. So of course that's why it says the Powhatans, again, this is like a tribe within God, within the Native American Indians. It says they generally sighed and showed displeasure when asked about her. They were not inclined to discussing their side of the narrative until she was portrayed not as a woman enamored on Cook, but as a strong woman in her own right, who was able to choose right for reasons beyond romance. So they pretty much wanted to see her in a state of strength, which at the end of the day, the woman's the weaker vessel, anyways. So though the movie is incredibly inaccurate, she's clearly not a pawn in it. Something like a tool to be used for someone else's agenda. Anyways, this could have helped to make it easy to discuss her as an American's way of thinking began to change about the history behind the legend. And that is the way God recorded things was I think it was through etchings on certain trees, or there were etchings into certain wood in order to record their history. Let's say if their family line as well. But all of that Esau destroyed and cleared up. So all their history would have been done up. It would have been done up. But yeah, man, that's really the key part. The narratives are that this has helped to also build up your understanding of the Gadites, the Reubenites, the Native American Indians as a whole. In this story, man. So that's really the truth on Pocahontas, man. Eventually she sold out to Christianity, if you will. She didn't really have a choice. But the point is, God didn't even have a hope that by them, because really, again, just by default of having the names Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, that gives us far more hope and strength than any other time that we had where we didn't have the name. Because we're connecting back to our power source, man. When we also pray unto Yahweh Shai, we pray unto Yahweh, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right, let's I'm gonna end off there. The artists are once more, you found it edifying, to build you up, and exhorting, which means encouraging as well. We weren't just some dumb people. We were strong, we were intelligent. But of course, this is also a lesson to learn, man. When a time comes where death is put upon our faces or torture, pray to Yahweh Hashem Shah for strength. Really, we're praying day by day that Yaratas are being endured to the end. So by that alone, we're praying for strength. By Shalak Chazak, which means please send strength, for us. In the ancient Hebrew, Baba Kusha means please, Shalak means send, Chazak means strength. So we're praying for that strength for that time, man, so that Yaratazar will endure to the very end, and whatever tortures that we're going to endure through, or whatever we have to endure through, even as a pilgrim, that we have the wisdom and we have the strength to also go through it as well. Not unlike Pocahontas. Anyways, that's the point. Shalom. Once more, double honors to the greatest and apostles. Shalom.